What started back in the 1950s as a way to get the racing off of Daytona Beach and into a permanent facility, we now have the World Center of Racing known as Daytona International Speedway. Thank you and welcome back everyone to Season 5, the AMX Sim Racing World Championship, where today, like I said, we're out at Daytona in the TCR vehicles, a fan favorite track and car both. But like we said, we had a bit of a delay, so we don't want to delay you any further. I am Kevin, joined with Damon today as your commentators, and what's already looking to be quite the heat up race. We are now currently about heat 1, so we will get into that very shortly. Like I said, if you want to get any info at all times, you can always follow our social media, as well as head over to amxrace.com, and if you want to follow along with us, you will see the timing pop up periodically. But Damon, let's go ahead and get into heat number 1.
Yeah, let's. We're going to straight into the fight right now. They're in the middle of heat. I think this is quite unfortunate because we did want to talk about the track and the cars a little bit, but we are on the Daytona road course layout with the TCR. It's a pretty wacky, pretty interesting combination of cars and tracks, but already we can see here the car in front is David Zewalk right now, and Kieran Harrison is hot on his heels as they're coming into the bus stop chicane right now. Oh wait, no, this is not a bus stop chicane. This is the start of the lap. I think this is currently lap 4 out of I'm not sure how many laps there are, but it started lap 4, yes. And Kieran Harrison just made the pass onto David Zewalk right there. David Zewalk looking to take it over again, switching back around as he entered the right-hander. Car going wide there. I'm not sure it was David Dino Filippa, or quite a wide line there, so unfortunate for him. Kieran Harrison taking over the lead yet again, and as an American, I think you're more familiar with Daytona than I am. What do you think about the course specifically?
Oh, I mean, this is definitely one of my favorite racetracks, like we said. So home of the Daytona 500 for NASCAR, as well as home of the 24 Hours of Daytona, which happens early on in the year. So we've seen a lot of these guys. I know they participate in, at least for the road side of things, we see a lot of these same drivers out there in the official iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona. But speaking about last time we were out on this track, not exactly last time, but around the same week. So right now we're about week 5 into the season. Last season, one standout moment for a lot of people is that we had Max Verstappen actually joining the race via the controller. So it was at the beginning of the Formula 1 season. I believe he was out in the hotel room. So we had him as well as a couple other his teammates. But today it's looking like it's all David Zewalk and Kieran Harrison. Like I said, already an entire lap going back and forth, door to door, but with these big banks on the side right here, you do not want to be caught on the outside. So that's one thing that, these drivers definitely need to have a little bit different strategy. Once you hit those banking sections, those long straights, the draft comes into play very heavily right there. As you can see, Kieran Harrison having the inside line, as well as a little bit of help from Reutemann behind him and Peter Zubov right behind them as well. So that's one thing going into turn 1. Right here, this can get very dangerous. You don't want to be too close to the other drivers. But like I said, these guys out here keeping it safe so far. We are lap number 6 of 10 out here in heat number 1.
Yeah, and David Zewalk there entering turn 1 immediately took a very bad line because of how he was stuck on the outside of the banking entering that corner. He immediately got forced off the line and just lost 5 positions just like that. So right now, Kieran Harrison is taking the front running position with Anton Reutemann behind him, Dino Filippa in 3rd place, Peter Zuba in 4th, Nico Vesbicki in 5th, and David, unfortunately, his race being really put behind. We're currently lap 6 out of 10 right now, so he doesn't have a lot of opportunities to get back into the front. He has to make something happen quite quickly if he wants to be in that podium finish. And talking about that, the rest of the field as well, we have Bruno Lecarmo, Gaston Kohavi, Diego Villarreal, also taking part here with Pedro Dean, Josh Irwin, Tim State, Jackson Resende, Evandro Dantas, and Rafa Benitez also running out the top 5 right now. And Tim State in a pretty good position. Talking about some of the other drivers, Jackson Resende here, not as great of a position as I would have thought, considering how well he did in the previous weeks, but I think because of how the difference in time between him and Tim State, I'm inclined to believe that There was an accident or incident early on in the heat that we ended up missing. But regardless of that, right now, Jackson Rosende has a tall ask of him, having to catch up to Tim State there. But however, for the rest of the field, he won the P10. It's actually really close, all things considered.
Yeah, right now. And so what was a battle earlier on between Givok? Now it's going to be Ayrton Reutemann and Kieran Harrison. So Reutemann looking for that outside line as they come around back into turn number one. But like we seen earlier, you definitely want to be able to have the inside line going on here, as going out can just put you, as we see, Reutemann going on the grass right there. So slowing down a little bit, that leaves room for Dino Filippa to slot up into that second place position. But like we said, we also have a battle going on right now. David Givok, Peter Zuba. So one thing you really want to be able to set yourself up coming off of that banking and going into turn one, that definitely having the speed coming out of that corner, definitely, as we've already seen the last few laps, can get you on the podium or put you right back down. But right now it's still Givok, Peter Zuba going side by side, as well as we have, looks like the number 33 car of Wierzbicki as well. So caught up in that. We'll have to see. These guys are already getting a little bit aggressive. The great thing that happens with these cars, TCR Class, I love it because they're a little bit more forgiving. These cars can take a little bit of push and shove without completely ending up into the wall. But once again, we like to try to keep it a little bit clean out here. But that is TCR Racing. As it says, Kieran Harrison now starting to get a bit of a gap, but we'll see if Dino Filippa and Ayrton Reutemann are able to work together. Maybe a little bit of bump drafting. That is one thing that you do see out on this course, having that oval configuration that they have to go on. Now going into the bus stop chicane, the Le Mans chicane. Kieran Harrison, last season's championship winner for the TCR class, showing why exactly he was the champion, as well as the previous TCR race we have in season 5. Kieran Harrison able to walk out of here, as well as Corentin Guinez is another person that we see quite a lot. That looking at the timing screen, I don't see him out here today, so unfortunate that he was unable to make it to this race. But nonetheless, like we've seen, Kieran Harrison, Dino Filippa, and Ayrton Reutemann, your top three.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that because Corentin Guinez isn't here, and as we've noticed that there is no French representation this time around, so interesting to see. But that gives Kieran Harrison all the time in the world to make his way back to the front of the overall leaderboards for AMX 5 here. Regardless of that, I think he's doing pretty well for himself, considering his closest competition isn't here. But that isn't to say that the rest of these drivers won't give him a run for his money. And I like that you mentioned the cars themselves, because we all know how TCR always brings out the best in people, the most aggressive in people, because every time we've had TCR races, they've always been action-packed and intense. There'll be no exceptions here, of course. We got about 2 laps left before the end of the first heat here, and I think Tim States just entered the pits. Not sure for what reason specifically, but that is going to put him really far near the back of the pack here. And we can see that's Pedro Dean, Diego Villarreal, Gaston Kulhavmi, and Bruno Carmo are tailing Nico Wierzbicki right now, but he's still holding head strong on that P6.
And speaking of other people in the pits, it does look like we have one name that we don't see out here very often. Looks like Santiago Bastarrica ended up in the pits a little bit early on, but being in the pits so early, he is in that 16th place position. So unfortunately, he will not get the benefit of getting onto the reverse grid. It looks like right now that place will go to Tim State. So currently, Tim State may be your pole position for heat number 2. But right now, back to the front of the pack, what everybody is looking at: Kieran Harrison, Dino Filippa, and Ayrton Reutemann. So we have, again, Filippa able to start closing in the gap between Harrison, as well as right here, you see, right here, the bump draft, like we mentioned earlier, Nico Wierzbicki, David Givok, Bruno De Carmo, and we have these guys, Gaston Kulhavmi. So very, very close as we go into, like I said, back to heat lap number 9, turn number 1. It is all getting heated up right here. So I expect a lot of these drivers going to be starting to put it too wide going into the road course of here, the road course section out here at Daytona. So the infield, normally known for the great camping spots, a lot of people for the NASCAR races, but we can see right here just as well for the road course. So TCR cars, I love seeing them. As we see right here, a little bit of a back and forth. We have seen right behind Wierzbicki, we have Bruno DeCarmo and David Givok battling it out. So these guys wanting to do whatever they can to get that position, as it looks like Givok is going to be right in front of Wierzbicki. Oh, sorry, Wierzbicki's right in front of Givok, who's also right in front of Bruno DeCarmo. These guys are keep going back and forth, but that's what we love to see out here.
Yeah, and the Polish are being beset on all sides by the Brazilians and the Argentinians, as is Gaston Kulhavi there making up 2 positions ahead of Bruno DeCarmo. David Zuwak losing that position again. I think that was Bruno DeCarmo just went back into the draft there. And it looks like David Zuwak is kind of in the ruts right now because he's got he's got about a lap remaining in order to make something happen. He was on his way up, and then just the bad line ended up putting him even further back, as well as opportunities taken by the rest of the drivers. So again, he's going to have to drive for his life to leaving the bus stop chicane, entering the final lap, and it's shaping up to be a real slobber knocker, especially for when Heat 2 begins.
And just as we've seen all season long, we have Kieran Harrison, who's been leading, is also setting the best lap time so far. So that just goes to show some of these, once you're able to get a little bit of that clean air, able to keep those lap times up by nearly half a second right now. So Kieran Harrison doing an excellent job out here. So like we said, right now, the white flag is flying. We are on the final lap. We'll see if Dino Filippa, what does he have in it to be able to overtake Kieran Harrison? Kieran Harrison, an absolute veteran out here, especially in the TCR class. So right now, as we go, turn number 2, looking to the inside, we have Dino Filippa. Will he have enough? He goes, a little bit of contact into the side of Kieran Harrison. So now it's a drag race all the way into the next turn. So we got a great stretch right here as we go into the West Bend. So we'll have to see right here. This is definitely one of those that you want to be able to set up these turns, be able to get it into the oval. So right here, great moves going on. So Kieran Harrison, Dino Filippa, and Arjen Reutemann battling it out for first place. We have a 3-way battle. These guys are so close. So it's anyone's race still as they are making their way now back onto the oval section. So right here, Kieran Harrison is going to have to block for his absolute life if he wants to hold on to that P1 position. But like we said, we'll see if Filippa and Reutemann, are they going to be able to work together as Kieran Harrison starts getting about a half a second gap that is slowly closing. So draft is not as crazy in these cars as it may be in some of the other ones, but once you get onto those straights of the oval and now going into the Le Mans chicane out here, we'll just have to see. So like we said, it looks like Kieran Harrison still holding on very, very comfortably into that lead position as Dino Filippa just trying to have to pull something out. He's going to have to pull out something out of nowhere if he wants to be able to do this. So here he comes, folks. Around the final turn of the oval, we have Dino Filippa was looking to the inside, now going to the outside. They're going to drag race. He's still trying to get as much draft as he can, get as much speed as we come back onto the final straightaway. Who is it going to be? Kieran Harrison, Dino Filippa side by side, down to the line, a little bit of contact. Oh no! Into the grass goes Kieran Harrison. So it looks like a little bit of a bump. Dino Filippa able to just edge out that position, and Kieran Harrison not too happy about that. So like we said, we're going to have to see exactly, I don't know if that's going to be a penalty or not, but Filippa Harrison door banging across the finish line, sending Harrison into the grass on the infield. Like we said, that we'll have to see if there's any penalties there or what exactly happened. So the unofficial timing is Dino Filippa coming away first place, Kieran Harrison second, and Arjen Reutemann in third. As we see our other drivers now, Jackson Asenge getting ready to come across the checkered flag, as well as Dantas Benitez. So we have the 3 Brazilians, a few of the Delinte Esports drivers now crossing the line. So we'll have to see. A lot of these drivers, like we said, we got into Heat 1 a couple laps in already, and we missed a couple of incidents, but I know these drivers are going to want to have to make that up for Heat number 2. So here are your, like I said, somewhat unofficial results. We'll have to see if there's going to be any post-race penalties applied for that incident across the checkered flag later on. But as it sits, first place, Dino Filippa, second, Kieran Harrison, third, Arjen Reutemann. Going down to fourth, Nikodem Wierzbicki, fifth, Diego Villarreal, Gaston Kulhavi in that sixth place, Bruno DeCarmo seventh, Peter Zuba in eighth, as well as Pedro Dean ninth, David Givok in 10th, Kieran Harrison setting the fastest lap time. So A lot of these guys out here pretty much all the way into P11, having a pretty okay time. Like I said, there were a couple of incidents going on. We had Santiago Bastarrica unfortunately ending up in the pits and having to retire from heat number 1. But looking like Tim State will be setting your pole for this heat number 2. So heat number 1 is in the books. Now we're going to have to move on to heat number 2, see if that will shake things up a bit. Like we said, little bit of incident out there between Kieran Harrison and Dino Filippa at the very end. So expect those two to battle it out. Definitely want to get their way through the front.
All right, here they are with the parade lap, and already a little bit of squirreling going on at the back there. Not sure what happened, but here they come into turn 1, and it looks like it's going to be clean for the time being. We'll have to see. Tim State is still holding on to that pole position, and already a driver's gone off. That was Rafa Benitez. I think he got shunted a little bit and then lost control of the car. Another driver's gone off there. I think that was Bruno De Carmo as well. Jackson Resende is pulling out to the front of the pack this time, trying to redeem himself for the previous heat. But look at this, here comes Kieran Harrison. He's made it all the way back up to P8 alongside Arthur Reutemann as well as Nico Brzezicki. Where is Dino Filippa right now? He's actually dropped down to P13. Santiago Bastarrica just holding on to that position in front of him. And right now, it seems like, aside from that little bit of an affair at turn 1, having a pretty clean mid-lap so far. David Zewalk now is pressuring Tim State to take that position away from him. The Tim State having to defend as best as he can. Rafa Benitez dropping all the way to the back with Josh Berwin just taking over the lead, taking over that position from him. And Kieran Harrison, man on a mission right now, jumped up another position. He's already made up 7 positions, and the lap's not even over yet. David Zewalk here making it past Tim State. Tim State generously giving the line to him as they're about to enter the bus stop chicane. But Jackson Resende is hot on their heels. He wants to be in the draft of either one of these cars in order to close the gap a little bit more. Evandro Dantas is also tailing them as here they come into the bus stop chicane. David Zewalk still keeping it quite neat and tidy here. Very clean. And you have to be really careful with these cars, especially when you take over the lines like this, because they're not built for this track like the NASCARs are. So there's going to be certain sets of challenges that will present themselves when you're taking cars like these on this track. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. As these drivers going flat out into the banking, you can get a little bit of an idea right there just how steep the banking is. So over 30 degrees. Out here at Daytona being one of the most popular super speedways. So the oval section, about 2.5 miles, just the oval section. So those guys, when you're going over 200 miles an hour in the NASCAR vehicles, you definitely need to have the banking. So these guys not quite getting up to those speeds, but definitely able to go flat out. As we can see right there, Kulavi, just locked up a little bit, touches the inside and made just the littlest of mistakes. So glad that he's able to get it right back onto the course. So Kulavi's sitting right now in P6, but Kieran Harrison, like we said, a man on a mission. He was looking to come into first place until the very, very last moment, and a little bit of contact sent him into the infield on the grass, dropping him into second place. So we know he had that win in the bag all the way to the very end. So he is definitely coming out here with a vengeance out in heat number 2, as we can see already up 8 positions, now sit in 6th place. So I think this is definitely the driver to watch out here for heat number 2.
Yeah, definitely. And Kieran Harrison probably would have ended up with the Grand Slam if the Triple Crown if he ended up finishing first there. Did walk away with the fastest lap, so at least he'll have that in the bag. But yeah, as you said, he's probably going to be a little bit peeved after the results of Heat 1, and he's looking to drive more aggressively and more cleanly for this particular heat. He's still ahead of Kulhavi, trying to catch up to Pedrodini. He's actually getting quite close right now, less than 0.2 of a second, less than 0.3 of a second is separating them as they enter the bus stop chicane. Kieran Harrison immediately up to the tail of Pedro Dean there. And it looks like he's going to utilize this draft in order to make it past him cleanly on turn 1 if it looks like it. We've still got quite a bit of the race left to go, only still about 8 laps remaining. And Kieran Harrison, with this much progress, I could see him ended up taking pole position before we've even reached the halfway point of the race.
And right here you can see with that draft, so that lets the top 5 be within 1 second of each other. As we can see right here, Givok Hisenje as well. Another battle going on currently for P1 as we head into lap number 3. So turn 1, David Givok right there showing an excellent maneuver, being able to block off Jackson Hisenje. But we still have Tim State holding his own in 3rd place, followed by Pedro Dean, Kieran Harrison. So right here we should expect lap 3 of 10. Things are already heating up. These guys, like we said, got very comfortable in the first heat, able to come out here blazing out into heat number 2. As we can see right now, David Givok, we'll have to see if he is able to hold on to this first place position. As we know, Jackson Hisenje, one of our veteran drivers out here in AMX, doing an excellent job in heat number 2. But Kieran Harrison, looking beautiful move to the inside already to make up another position. So Kieran Harrison overtaking Tim State. Now Kieran Harrison looking to get on the podium so far, but like we've seen from heat number 1, a podium isn't good enough for him unless it's going to be that first place position. We know he has it in him. We know he has the pace. He is an absolutely quick driver out here at Daytona. So he only has Jackson Hisenje and David Givok currently sitting in between the way of him and another P1 victory. But like we said, Pedro Dean, Gaston Kulavi also starting to close in that gap behind Tim State. They're also looking for that podium out here in heat number 2.
Yeah, and Kieran Harrison made up 3 positions in a single lap. That's pretty much solidifying my point that he might end up near the front of the pack before the halfway point of the race. Ringing true right now, he's already podium, but like you said, podium's not good enough for Harrison. He has to make it all the way to the front, and that will mean having to compete against David Ziwa, who he was battling quite intensely with during Heat 1 until David Ziwa ended up being pushed back a bit. Here comes Resende though, coming for the pass with the help of the draft and the banking here, but he might scrub up a bit too much speed coming into turn 1. Here he comes. Yeah, he ended up scrubbing a bit too much speed coming into turn 1, but looking like he wants to go for the switchback. Doesn't get it, so he still has to contend with that P3. But here comes Kieran Harris side, takes that position relatively cleanly, but it's a right-hander next. He has the outside line, so next to Resende just taking back the position from him, but they're still side by side, and Kieran Harrison not going to give up on the attack so easily. Jackson Resende forced to concede that position to him, ended up with at least half a car in front, and Kieran Harrison immediately making the pass look super easy for him. Now David Ziwa, here he comes. Oh, he's been forced a bit wide. Kieran Harrison takes advantage of that, goes for the dive into the next right-hander. And just like that, he's in front. Another 2 positions taken over the course of the first 5 turns of the track. Immediately, what a driver.
So we see right here, heat number 2, it only took 4 laps into this thing for Kieran Harrison to battle his way from the back of the pack. Now, sitting back in that first place position. So he's sure glad to get in that place, but we all know from seeing what happened last time, right here, the draft can be killer. He had about a second lead over the other competitors, and the last heat with them kind of working together a bit, being able to have a little bit of bump draft to get back up to him. So now he's going to take that in mind and just absolutely lay everything out on the line as Kieran Harrison, like we said, fastest lap of last heat, no doubt that he can set it again. So we'll see if Givok, you know, like we said, we're lap 4 of 10 into this, so it is definitely a sprint race, but they still have to know, okay, we're not even halfway through. You want to take every single opportunity that you can, but at the same time, you want to play it safe, be able to set yourself up for that final lap stretch. But we can see right there, Jackson Hisenje working a little bit with Givok, but now looking to go to the outside. We'll have to see if he has enough grip to hold on to it. We've seen usually the guys that go for the inside line as Givok, peeking just a little bit on the inside of Harrison and a little bit of contact. So right there, that could have been very, very nasty. Givok hit in the back of Kieran Harrison just a little bit going into turn 1, but Harrison able to hold on to it, try to not let him phase it too much, holding on to that first place position.
Yeah, and I think it really goes to show how the TCRs are relatively manageable because they're front-wheel drive. Getting bumped in the rear lets you recover a little bit easier compared to if the cars were rear-wheel drive. I think Kieran Harrison might appreciate a little bit of that speed bump from Z-Wall because it means that he managed just to pull away from Resende, who was the closest to mounting an attack there. Resende dropping back down to P3 because of that. And yeah, like you mentioned before, taking the outside line on a course like this is almost always detrimental for any driver that tries it, just because of the way the track is designed. But Yeah, Kieran Harrison doing a really good job keeping it nice and tidy through the rest of the course.
So right now we're about halfway through heat number 2, lap 5 of 10 out here again. We're out here in week number 5, so we have had a lot of amazing races going on so far. We've had a lot of back and forth from all of these drivers. So one of the big things that want to keep in mind, like we said earlier, one of the crazy things when we were out here last season, around the same time, around week 5 of last season, we had Chris Lolum from Team Redline as well as Max Verstappen going on. Max Verstappen on the controller, still only about a second off the pace from everyone else. So whenever we've seen that, we've seen a couple of people do that at different times come in, and that just shows the amount of talent that goes into some of these drivers. But like I said, it looks like not really any Team Red line out here today, as we've seen the battle going back. We have the Asher Racing of Kieran Harrison. Love the yellow and purple car, as well as Delete Esports as Jackson Sanjay going for a ballsy move right there to the inside, man. That takes some guts right there. That goes to show why Jackson Sanjay, of course, another AMX veteran, is as good as he is. So making that move going into the turn 1 over David Givok, and now doing a great job of defending him off. So Jackson Sanjay able to get up into that P2 and is now trying to hunt down Kieran Harrison.
Yeah, and that dive was pretty dangerous, because if you end up taking it at the wrong speed or you brake too hard, you could end up locking the brakes and then completely understeering off there. But props to Jackson Resende, he manages to make it work, and now he's being rewarded for it with an extra position. And the Reutemann is actually pulling up quite closely behind as well. He just made it past Petrodini. He's now in P4, so it might be another car joining the fray here for this battle for P1. And David Ziwa, he's not going to be too happy with that, because he got forced out of that line, forced out of his line he wanted to take by Jackson Resende's ballsy move. It will slow both these cars down a little bit, which gives Kieran Harrison the space to extend the lead by about 0.4 of a second. So he's now close to a second in front. But as you mentioned, these long straights and the drafting could help the other 2 cars behind him to close that gap. As you can already see, lost 0.2 of a second. Lost 0.3 of a second, and just like that, these cars, well, they're not particularly fast. They do still go up to at least 240, 250 Ks, about 145 to 150 miles an hour. So no slouches by any stretch of the imagination.
So right now, as we are back onto the banking, you can see the beautiful onboard shot of David Givok. But right now, he's trying to hold off Ayrton Reutemann, who is doing a great job so far out there in the Hyundai vehicle. So, like I said, most of the drivers out here driving the Audi RS3 TCR car. We only have about 3 people out there in the Hyundai. So we'll just have to see. Like we said, a lot of these tracks, a lot of these drivers out here prefer the Audi from what we've seen at a lot of tracks. To go into turn number 1 of lap 7, David Givok looking to get back. He's still on 3rd place, so he knows he has that podium. But like we said, Ayrton Reutemann slowly closing in. As we see behind him as well, Pedro Dean. So a few different people. These guys battling it out towards the front of the pack has left the middle of the pack, able to start making up some ground on them. So it's going to be an interesting last several laps, as right now doesn't look like Kieran Harrison has still been doing an amazing job setting it off. So whenever you're able to keep up that much pace while also defending off the other drivers, shows just the amount of skill some of these guys have. As we see right here, going through wide. Oh no, and an incident. It looks like right there we have Givok, Reutemann, leaves Wierzbicki able to get up, take advantage of that, as well as Pedro Dean. So we had a few guys right there getting into an incident, and now that will put Pedro Dean up onto podium contention.
Yeah, a little bit of a mistake there from Reutemann. Ended up forcing both him and Ziwa back to the back of the pack, and immediately Kieran Harrison doesn't have any more competition. We've got about 3 laps left in the race remaining, and Jackson Resende is about a 1.5 seconds clear. Kieran Harrison is about a 1.5 seconds clear of Jackson Resende, so he doesn't have to worry about them catching up, particularly using the draft. However, Pedro Dean is still helping him a little bit, so that gap you can see is narrowing by a small amount every time they get onto the big straight. And Jackson Resende on a bit of a redemption drive after what happened during Heat 1 there, where he got forced to the back of the pack. However, using the opportunity that he was given by slotting in the front and using it to his absolute max potential right now, he just has to try and catch up to Kieran Harrison. Might be able to get this in the bag.
So as you can see on board of Reutemann's car, we have a battle going on between him and Gvok for 5th place. So Gvok looking very, very good, looking like he's going to be on the podium, and unfortunately now ending up dropping down a couple more spots. So that is the nature of this track, though. When you guys are going super, super fast out here in these cars with not a lot of horsepower, it's really up to a lot of those corners. So I think that's really where we've seen a lot of these drivers shine today, is the ones that are able to master some of these turns, being able to brake a little bit later than the other guys, being able to hold on to some of that grip on the outside lines. So that really goes to show of the ones that are very, very comfortable. As you can see, the incident from Reutemann again, we see right there, right there, the number 12 and the number 4. So Jackson Asenge almost getting caught up in that, able to walk away as well. So Reutemann just unfortunately a little bit too much. And then right here, we see on the next turn going back, and that unfortunately puts him into Gvok, and both of those guys going back down a little bit. So unfortunately for both of them, as at his left, your leaders currently, Kieran Harrison 1st place, Jackson Asenge in 2nd, and Pedro Dean in 3rd.
Yeah, and still props to Jackson Asende here. Pedro Dean also behind him. They're going to they might end up on the podium barring any hard mistakes, but here comes Nico Vesvicki. He actually managed to catch up to those two cars, utilizing the draft to its max potential right now. So he's probably going to be in contention for that podium as well, as long as they can keep it neat and tidy. As they're now entering the bus stop chicane, relatively incident-free this particular corner. The only things that we've seen really, and Pedro Dean is actually making a move here on Jackson Resende. Ended up taking a really wide line and staying on the high side of the banking. Probably not going to be a good position for him, as he ends up surrendering 2 spots to both Versbicki and Pedro Dean here, which means that he is now the one tailing everyone else for that position. And with less than 2 laps remaining, in fact, he's going to have to find some way to get back in front.
Yeah, and as we can see here, like you said, so now Pedro Dean able to come up 5 spots from where he started on the grid. Now looking into 2nd place position, but he has his work cut out for him, as Kieran Harrison already to make almost a 2-second lead from 1st to 2nd place. So Pedro Dean, I think right now he's just going to have to worry about Wierzbicki to hold on to that P2. I'm not too sure how worried he's about. We'll have to see a big mistake from Kieran Harrison for Pedro Dean to really get into that 1st place position. But like we said, I'm not sure if Pedro Dean or Wierzbicki, they both want to win it. So we'll have to see out here once they get onto the oval section of the track. Will they work together, or are they going to battle it out? So this is one of those things that you have to be able to really come into strategy saying, all right, I know I'm racing against some of these guys, but we both want the win, and the only way either of us are going to get the win is if we have to work together. So we'll see as now we come out of the road section back onto the oval. So Pedro Dean, Nico Wierzbicki. So we usually see Nico Wierzbicki in the Drago Racing livery, which he does not have on today, but I could see it out there on his gloves. So we have right here NORG of Pedro Dean and Nico Wierzbicki of Team Drago. So looking like a little bit of a gap. Pedro Dean doing a great job. Great coming out of those corners. So we seen him last season as well, of the Dean brothers, a couple of different NASCAR races. So we'll have to see, as we do have one coming up very soon. Make sure to head over to the website for the full schedule. So we'll be out at Talladega very soon. One of those kind of oddball races that we like to throw out here at AMX with some of these drivers. So a lot of those drivers that are usually on the road only will now be getting a little bit of taste of NASCAR. So make sure you guys get the full schedule, see on that, as we have Resenge looking like he's going into the pits. Not exactly sure what happened there. He was doing very well, but now having to pit on the final lap. So white flag is going. Kieran Harrison still in the lead.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. While we wore our tires so much, maybe accidentally straight into the pit lane. We can't really say for sure, but he's going to suffer for it because he's dropped down all the way down to P14. And we were just talking about how he was on a redemption drive, and immediately those hopes have been put to rest because of this unforeseen mistake by Jackson Resende. Kieran Harrison now uncontested, as we're on the white flag already, about to finish up this particular lap. And Kieran Harrison probably going to walk away being the overall winner of this particular race. But battle's not over yet. Here comes Gaston Coulthard. He's trying to make it past David Zewald. We'll see if he'll be able to do it by the end of the lap. David Zewalt still holding on to that P6 position, flashing his lights there. Not sure what kind of signal he was trying to send. Maybe he was just saying hi to the cameraman. But here we are back on the oval right now. We're on the back half of this lap, the final stretch. And yeah, Kieran Harrison actually doing very, very well this time around.
So you guys see the battle for 6th place ensuing on screen still, as well as a battle for 3rd. So Wierzbicki having to battle off Reutemann as they head into the Le Mans chicane. These guys, Wierzbicki able to make it up quite a few positions, and now looking to see if his hopes for that podium will continue as we're back on to the final turns 3 and 4 of the oval section. What would normally be the NASCAR turn 3 and 4. But right here, this is where the speed matters, as Wierzbicki able to get out just a little bit. But now that we come across, we're going across. It looks like Kieran Harrison does have enough pace in him to cross the checkered flag in first, Pedro Dean in second, and Reutemann not looking like he has enough pace. So there's your top 3, Kieran Harrison, Pedro Dean, as we have, a little bit of contact right there between that. Looks like Kulavi and Givok. We'll have to see exactly right there. The Sart Racing car going into the wall in reverse, but luckily that was pretty much as they had already passed the checkered flag. So Kieran Harrison so close in heat 1 to be able to get that win, only to be getting bumped a little bit, and those guys, him ending up into the infield on the grass just a little. So what was so close to being the win of heat 1 and 2, but now, like we said, we knew he was out here with a vengeance. We knew he was definitely looking to come back stronger than ever in heat 2, and he did. He absolutely did. But one thing that we see there, fastest lap actually being set by Santiago Basarica. So there you go, your session, your heat number 2 winner, Kieran Harrison, with over a second gap between him and Pedro Dean, but Pedro Dean showing excellent pace out here, able to make it all the way up to second position. So definitely don't let the young driver fool you. We have a lot of young drivers out here that are getting better and better every single week, and Pedro Dean is one of those. Definitely to be on the lookout coming in here. We'll see if we can get him on that top spot one of these days if he has it in him. I definitely think he does. Nikodem Wierzbicki, Team Drago driver right there as well, coming in 3rd. Arjen Reutemann in 4th. Dino Filippo 5th. Gaston Kulavi in 6th, 7th place. Santiago Basarica, 8th. Ivancho Dantas, 9th. We have Bruno De Carmo, and 10th, Diego Villarreal. So we got a lot of these drivers, like we said, out here week in, week out. One driver, though, that is usually here, nearly never misses a race, was Gael Valero. So your current AMX 5 championship leader not out here today. We'll have to see if he comes in for race number 2 of the day. But there we go, folks. That is your race number 1 of today out here at Daytona International Speedway. So TCR cars always put on a show. Like we said, Damon, what was your highlight of that race?
Hard to say. I mean, I think Kieran Harrison just barely missing out on the Triple Crown was a little bit of a disappointment, but it is one of the highlights because it just goes to show exactly how proficient he is handling these TCR cars. And overall, I think relatively incident-free, all things considered, for this race, barring maybe a few spins, maybe a few things. I think the width of Daytona as a track really does lend itself to more comfortable racing between some of these drivers, except for that very end there with Gaston Kulavi and David Zewalt. I think a little bit of rubbing gone a bit too far, but regardless of that, strong finish from a lot of these drivers. Not really much else to say except that this isn't the final race of the day. Of course, we do still have one more session, and it will be another pretty wacky combination. We have actually not wacky. I mean, we've seen those cars on Watkins Glen before. Yeah, so spoiler, we'll be taking V8 supercars up until Watkins Glen in just a little bit. And Kevin, I'll let you take away the reins as we head over to our first break.
Yeah, so like I said, everyone, you can see all of our social media on the screen right now. So make sure to follow all of that, as well as head over to amxrace.com, get all of the info. If you want to sign up to join these races, like we said, feel free to head over there, get signed up, get in here, battling it out with some of these guys. But like Damon mentioned, we're going to be heading up the coast a little bit. Started in Daytona, now going to New York, Watkins Glen International, home of the 6 Hours of the Glen, as well as one of the road courses for the NASCAR Cups. But we're not out in the NASCAR. We are in a vehicle which drives a little bit similar, but still a little bit different, a little bit more aero on them. I love it. One of my favorite cars, the V8 Supercars. So we're not going to be doing an endurance race, though, today, as it's going to be an all-out battle. Last time we were there, we seen some of the drivers. Needless to say, I'll just say there was a little bit of drama on the last lap. Last time we seen the V8 Supercars out at Watkins Glen. And I don't want to spoil anything in case it happens again today. But great car combination, great track, a fan favorite of the vehicles, as well as going on last weekend in iRacing, the 6 Hours of the Glen. This week, AMX Sim Racing World Championship, Watkins Glen, and V8 Supercars. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
See you in 20 minutes.
Never hoped it to start. Now I'm feeling a space surrounding my heart. I'll never run away. But I'll never be the same. I'll never run away. But I'll never be the same. Drifting away, moving apart, never stopping, never hoped it to start. Now I'm feeling a space surrounding my heart. I'll never run away. But I'll never be the same.
Aguilar, he's gone up, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin! Oh,
and
no!
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lawson does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand. And this is it. Chris Lawson seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lawson takes it.
To save our home, we must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
And another beautiful shot as we see out here, Watkins Glen, New York, the great Watkins Glen International. Welcome back, everybody. Season 5 of the AMX World Championship, as we have a great combination out here today. Watkins Glen in the V8 Supercars. So what would normally be a NASCAR Cup configuration, we are out here today in the Australian V8 Supercars. So it's going to be a great one. We've seen some great battles already today. Dino Filippo, Kieran Harrison going door to door all the way through the finish line. And it looks like those drivers are going to be here in the V8 Supercars as well. So expect to see that. I am Kevin. Alongside me today is Damon as well. Damon, it's going to be a great battle out here. We'll see if that battle continues from race 1.
Yeah, agreed. And these cars, these V8 supercars, we're running with the 2014 class, I think. But yeah, it's going to present a new set of challenges compared to the TCRs that we had earlier, especially on Watkins Glen, which is a much different beast than Daytona itself. So I'm very interested to see how this ends up going for all these drivers.
So like we said, usually home of the 6 hours of the Glen. Last week, iRacing had their special event of 6 hours of the Glen, which a lot of these guys were participating in. So they are no stranger to the track. But like we said, as we have our socials up on the screen, to make sure to head over there. Twitch, YouTube, we are here every single weekend as well. So make sure to tune into the live streams, or if there's something that you missed, make sure you can go back to the YouTube channel and check them out there. But before we get into today's qualifying session, we have a few things to go over. Like we said, we're at Watkins Glen, New York in the beautiful V8 Supercars. But for this season, a few different things going on. We started it way back in May 25th. I don't know why I say way back. That was only a few weeks ago. But we started May 25th and we're going all the way through August 18th. This season's prize pool is $15,000 as well as next level racing gear. So the AMX 5 races go as follow. We have our 20-minute qualifier, followed by a top 15 reverse grid going into heat number 1 of 20 minutes, into a second reverse grid for that 20-minute heat number 2. Driver cams are required, so if you are out here participating, we want to see your beautiful face out there. So join via the link on our AMX Discord or amxrace.com on our website. Balances are paid out every $100 each month, so make sure once you hit that $100 threshold, expect some money to head your way. Like I mentioned, we're here every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. If you want to get in on the action, head over to amxrace.com and get signed up. So Saturdays and Sundays, we do have, starting at 5:50 p.m. GMT, our AMX 5 race going on to a second one, followed at 7:20 p.m. And every other week, this season, we have our Assetto Corsa Competizione, and on the off weeks, we have AMX 0 starting at 5:50, as well as AMX 20, all new for this season, starting at 7 p.m. So every other week, make sure to get the full schedule to see what we have going on that weekend. And just as a reminder, those drivers, you are able to race in multiple races per day. So we brought that back for this season as well. The prize pool is as followed. So if you're in that top spot, you're going to be walking out qualifying $15, second place 10, third 9th, going all the way down into 15th place. Then once we get into heat number 1 and heat number 2, it will follow suit the same. 15, 10, 9, all the way down to 15th place. And the fastest lap set gets an extra couple points, extra couple dollars headed their way. If you want to join on these, there is a minimum road I rating of 2,000 for the AMX 5 class. So that brings the total prize pool of $250 per race. So another thing to keep in mind for those of you wanting to join in, or if you want to, save a little bit of money, you can save 40%. We got our season passes going on right now. So we have AMX 5 iRacing, AMX 5 Assetto Corsa Competizione, as well as AMX 20. So even though we're already a few weeks in, you can still save yourself some money by heading over to amxrace.com and getting yourself a season pass. So right now, that is pretty much what we have going on for this season. Like we said, it's been a great season so far. A lot of back and forth the entire time. But going over, Damon, let the beautiful folks out there know what we got going on for today's race.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And yeah, this time around we are going to be, as you said before, in Watkins Glen. We're going to pull up the course info in just a little bit. Here we go. Opened all the way back in 1956, and in fact, before it was taken over by NASCAR, it did end up hosting the Formula One World Championship from 1961 until 1980, where it was then taken off the schedule due to a bunch of issues that we won't mention. The track itself is fine. Yeah, a lot of technical sections here. Not very many high-speed sections, aside from the start-finish straight and the corner and the straight right after turn 1, and then the back straight. So not very many opportunities for long high-speed passes. But as you can see on the track itself, it's particularly wide. So there might be some opportunities there. And for the cars that we will be bringing on the course this time around, you definitely need all that track width. It is the V8 Supercars. This is the 2014 class, so the timeless battle between Ford and Holden was still in full swing back then. 635 horsepower rear-wheel drive monstrosities, 1,400 kilos of a sequential gearbox. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty banger set of races here, because we love some V8 supercars, and the Australians do too, which is why they're still running cars on their own calendar. So if you guys want to take a look at V8 supercars in action, just tune into Australian networks. I mean, they really love this stuff here. But enough about the track and car info. I think I'm going to send it back to you, Kevin, because we are about to get into qualifying.
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of these drivers, they can race in 2 races per day this season. So we had that back in season 3. It disappeared a little bit for season 4, but a lot of drivers missed it. A lot of fans missed it. So we made sure to bring it back for our season 5. So today, like we said, it's going to be a little bit of a different configuration. A lot of people have been used to, especially if they've been following along with the endurance racing out here, or even you've seen other things such as the Porsche Cup, as well as the Mustang Challenge going on this year in real life. We are not doing the boot configuration out here. We are following the NASCAR Cup configuration. So it takes out that boot, leaving it down a couple turns. But like we said, one of the biggest places right here, as you can see, it looks like right now Dino Filippa is our current leader in qualifying so far. So a little bit more than halfway through, as we can see, going up through the S's now onto the back straight. So right here, this is a great opportunity for a lot of passes to be overtaken. But once again, iRacing has updated this map this year. So right here, you can see how harsh that some of these bumps are right here, going over the curbing on the chicane. Those can get really, really dangerous going around the outer loop now, down, bypassing the chute for this configuration. So these guys carrying out a lot of speed coming out of that outer loop, going into the final last couple of turns. When we were here last season, we were actually out here for one of the races in the same V8 Supercars, my bad. V8 Supercars out here last season. We seen Kieran Harrison able to walk away with the win. But like we said, out here as we have Dino Filippa going into the pits. We'll see that battle going on all through race number 1 earlier today between Filippa and Kieran Harrison. I expect that rivalry to continue on out here in the Supercars.
Yeah, and I made a mistake earlier. I thought we were talking about the 2014 cars, but actually you're seeing the Mustang here, which means this is the 2019 class of cars. But the info for these cars pretty much stands the same. They've got the same amount of power, they weigh about the same, they have the same drivetrain. So again, Ford bringing in the Mustang this time around, rest in peace to the Falcon, which means there aren't actually that many Fords on the grid, as we can see, or massively. Most of these cars are Holdens, so it's almost a one-make race. However, currently Dino Filippa holding on to the fastest lap. We did talk about Kieran Harrison earlier on. He was the trailblazer for the TCR class. However, the V8 Supercars are a different beast entirely, and it looks like some of these drivers may have the beast under control more so than others. Another thing we have to point out is that we now have a Frenchman in the race here, Florian Lebigre from Team Redline, rocking a very nice updated livery from the team actually. And yeah, It'll be interesting to see how he handles the track this time around. No sign of Gavalero again this time around, but does have a fellow countryman to assist him. And if we look at the times right now, not very much difference between top 10-ish, probably about less than a second separating these cars.
Yeah, so looking at the timing score and even looking just at the top 7 left, less than half a second gap between the top 7 currently. So as you can see right here, Florian Lebigre, I love seeing this guy out in the open wheel cars. So I've seen him, he's very, very comfortable in those with Team Redline. He's one of their go-to drivers. So I love seeing it when some of these guys change it up a little bit. Like we said, the Australian, the V8 supercars, in my opinion, don't get enough love out here in iRacing. A lot of guys out here, of course, in the Holdens, everyone pretty much knows how dominant they are. The Mustangs got switched over from the Falcons, and now in the most recent gens, it's gone from that to the Camaro versus a Ford Mustang. But we see there Lebigre able to get his time up a little bit now, putting him in second place, just shy of that gap. So he's only about 600ths away from Dino Filippa currently.
Yeah, but again, there's quite a bit of time for them to set in more fast laps. You saw the last lap, a lot of them were actually on their out laps, which means now is really the time for them to put pedal to the metal. And as you mentioned before, 600ths of a second separating Dino Filippa and Florian Lebigre right now, with Victor Miranda not far behind. Jackson Resende, another driver that we have to look out for. Unfortunately, didn't really have the best race last time on Daytona. Hopefully, he'll be able to redeem himself here. See Victor Miranda cutting to the camera just as he goes off the track, pretty wide there. As you mentioned before, we are skipping the boot, so it is a relatively shorter lap compared to when the boot was around, but it'll still look like a pretty fun time. As yeah, I mean, not much to say right now except for how intense V8 supercars can be. As we've seen from their real world counterparts, those drivers go extremely hard when it comes to racing.
And one thing that I'll give a little bit of a preview out there for everyone watching at home is one thing that these cars, so they have a little bit of a smaller fuel tank at times. So one thing we've seen last season with this car track combination is on the final lap, some of these guys that were pushing it a little bit harder than the others, yes, they were able to get towards the front of the pack, but unfortunately, they started running out of fuel. So one thing to keep in mind out here is we'll have to see how many of these drivers that were here last season remember that, how many of them that are going to say, all right, I watched the race last time, or the guys that were in practice getting a full stint going through, just to be able to see, all right, there is just a little bit of fuel savings that may have to go into play here. So like we said, a lot of these guys that were out here last weekend doing the 6 hours of the Glen, they know just about that of like, okay, although you want to push it as hard as you can, there are a few places coming, into the chicanes, maybe let off a little bit early, maybe let off going into the last couple of corners. So right here, we'll just have to see exactly if that will come into play or not. As we see, oh no, Lebigre able to just narrowly avoid that incident there on the track as he's looking to get his track up. That looks like that was a Victor Miranda, a few other people out, Tim State there. So another thing that you've seen some of these guys out here locking up the wheels. So these V8 supercars, no traction control, no ABS. It is all down to the driver's inputs.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the previous season's race. I think that was during, let me see, I have the calendar pulled out right here. It was race, oh my god, am I blind? There we go, it was race 21. Yeah, this was the cup layout. So it's pretty much the same thing actually. So yeah, again, mentioning the fact that they might run out of fuel driving around here is going to be a pretty substantial thing, whether or not strategy was involved. In fact, this particular circumstance was what drove the relatively high variety of conditions that we'll be putting out during this particular season. And yeah, I mean, really looking forward to it. Let's see if they don't actually run out of fuel this time. Maybe they'll be able to keep it under control. But it's V8 supercars. Anything can happen, right?
And as you can see right there, as we're on board with Josh Perween, looking like, a lot of people say, okay, well, what about the track limit? So since we are running the Cup configuration, it is a little bit more lenient on some of these sections of the track. So that's another thing out here too, is to really figure out, as he goes into the wall just a little bit there. So that's going to do that lap for him. sitting in 4th place right now, Josh Perween. But like I was mentioning, out here in the Cup configuration, what you see in these cars today, as well as generally in the NASCAR vehicles as well, is some of these guys coming out of these turns right here. You'll see it take them a little bit wider outside of the curbing. So that right here, you see just how dangerous that can be. Pedro Dean looked like he may have just touched the grass a little bit, slips out. So that looks like that's going to do it for Pedro Dean for this lap as well. But right there, you can just see how much speed those guys are carrying into there. You know, these cars do have a little bit more aerodynamics than, say, a NASCAR Cup car. But even with that, it is still just as dangerous. We see a little bit of grass on the track there towards the outer edges. So one thing, the new curbing out here can definitely be dangerous if you don't hit it just right, as well as taking it a little bit too hard. But knowing that these drivers are pushing just definitely sets a precedent that this is going to be a great race.
Yeah, definitely. And we might see some lap 1 shenanigans here as we're less than 90 seconds to the end of qualifying here. Looks like Florian Lebigra actually manages to pull out ahead of Dino Filippa there. 109.907. Great time from him. Dino Filippa is on his outlap, so it doesn't look like he have enough time to set another fast lap here. We're on board with Diego Villarreal there, pulling over to the side of the road. I think he wants to clear some space for himself to set one more fast lap before the end of qualifying, but he might not have the time. So right now the top 3 is pretty set in stone. We have Lebigra, Dino Filippa, and Victor Miranda running our top 3. Kieran Harrison, unfortunately, hasn't really got a handle on the car just yet, having to settle for P8. Although I wouldn't blame him. Look at how competitive all the times are, all the way until P12. So definitely going to be interesting. We've got less than a minute left to the end of qualifying, and yeah, as you mentioned before, look at how wide these drivers are taking that exit there. You definitely need all the track space you can get in order to pull out that without risking losing the rear end, especially with cars like this who, yes, they do have better aerodynamics, but they're still high power rear wheel drive monsters, and they will bite you if you don't keep them under control.
So just like that, now we see a few other drivers coming across the line, trying to improve on their time. And Bruno De Carmo does. He's able to go up another position, now into 9th place. So we can see some of these guys right here. They're finally starting to set in just a little bit. Love the Vodafone. So that's an actual livery that is ran in the V8 Supercars, which, like I said, a lot of these guys, some of them do have their team liveries out there. Some of these cars not run as much. But nonetheless, that will wrap up our qualifying. And we do have your winner of qualifying, setting the fastest lap, Florian Lebigre, with a 109.9. So Lebigre just able to oust Dino Filippa. Like we said, these guys right here towards the top, they are some of the best in the world. Florian Lebigre, the Team Redline driver, in first. Dino Filippa, only 0.02 of a second down in second. Victor Miranda coming in third. Josh Perween fourth. Jackson Assange in fifth. Pedro Dean sixth. Kieran Harrison in 7th place. Gaston Kulavi 8th. Bruno De Carmo 9th. Avandro Dantas 10th. 11th, we have Ayrton Reutemann. 12th is Diego Villarreal. And Tim State rounding it out in 13th place. So right there we have, like we said, most of your drivers still within a second of each other, and quite a few of them all the way up to 9th place, less than half a second off of the pace. So we'll have to see, like we mentioned earlier, is fuel going to come into account here in this heat number 1? We'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, a lot of these drivers, they weren't here last time. They know these cars, they know this track, as we are moments away from going green here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, we're still waiting for a few more drivers to just load in. Tim State will be leading the pack off the starting line this time around. And another thing that we have to mention is that standing starts for these cars specifically, the launch matters so much. So if you have a bad launcher at start, you just start spinning the wheels, but you're not going anywhere. Everyone will just take over your position, and you're going to end up in a really compromised spot. And you don't want that to happen, especially when it's really difficult to keep these cars under control as they are already. And yeah, that also plays into what you mentioned before, that if you burn too much fuel at the starting line, you might not have enough to carry you all the way to the end. And here we go, green flags, the drivers are off. Looks like great launches from everyone all around that. Tim State pulling ahead off the front of the pack, but here comes Evandro Dantas here, coming into the P2, taking over Diego Villarreal's spot, and Reutemann also making it past. Kieran Harrison actually now making it into P4 as well, and Pedro Dean not being able to do the same as the rest of these drivers. So currently top 5 out of turn 1, pretty clean so far. It is Tim State, Evandro Dantas, Anton Reutemann, Kieran Harrison, Bruno Carmo actually making past Diego Villarreal as well in the Vodafone car. And a pretty clean start, all things considered, but that does have something to do with how wide the track is as they're coming into the first chicane here. And Tim State still doing a pretty good job of fending all these drivers off. With Pedro Dean there, looking a little bit shaky on the exit of the first half of that chicane, but managing to keep it under control. Oh, Tim State going a bit wide there, and you can see Evandro Dantas actually taking a very narrow line there. Has a bit of a good exit, but not good enough to maintain all that speed. However, as they're coming into the right-hander, the left-hander here, Evandro Dantas using the car to his advantage, pushing in and taking the position away from Tim State. Kieran Harrison now in P3. Didn't seem like he was getting too familiar with the car during qualifying, but all of a sudden during the actual race itself, he's like a bat out of hell.
So right there we can see Tim State now going down a place, like he's mentioned. Evandro Dantas, we'll see if he has the pace to be able to keep it up. So right now, while always lap one, you see just a little bit slower times as these guys did have a standing start. So we'll see now, once these guys start settling, as we see two wide right there, Kieran Harrison, Tim State. Oh, we have a little bit of lockout. That looks like Reutemann right there getting a little bit sideways, going into the wall. Hopefully he doesn't have too much damage. He's trying to get back on track. He'll have to make his way back up now if he has any chance of getting back on the podium. So right now, it is all Kieran Harrison able to go up already 5 places. So Kieran Harrison last season won here. He's looking to make it 2 in a row. So Evandro Dantas, Kieran Harrison, and Bruno De Carmo, your top 3 currently, as we are going to be rounding out lap number 2.
Yeah, and our current fastest lap holder, Florian Lebigre, is currently stuck in P7. Didn't have the best start out of the first 2 laps there. Having to struggle to make his way through the front of the pack. Might end up using a little bit more fuel than is initially expected. We'll see if he's able to keep his pace under control. And that's one thing that we do have to mention, is that the looming threat of running out of fuel is so important. You don't want to end up pushing the car too hard, especially in the beginnings of the race, as Tim State locks up the rear end a little bit and then goes wide out of turn 1 there, giving space for even more cars to make it past him. Pedro Dean being one of them here, and Jackson Resende being the next one. And right now, Evandro Dantas is facing extreme pressure from Kieran Harrison. However, Kieran Harrison has the draft coming out of that straight right now as they're entering the chicane. Evandro Dantas is still holding on to that position just a little bit, but the chicane with its relatively tall curves is very, very dangerous. And I've seen Kieran Harrison drive here before, and most of the time he always uses that particular chicane for overtaking maneuvers. So we'll definitely have to keep a lookout for that right now. Look at how wide these cars are making it out of that into the back straight. And Evandro Dantas is under a considerable pressure right now, and that is not to mention the other cars that are also closing the gap.
So out here at Watkins Glen, there isn't really a lot of places to overtake, especially out here in the NASCAR Cup layout of the track. So a lot of these are really going to come down to some of these drivers making those gutsy moves coming out of the straights. But we see right here, Kieran Harrison, a veteran sim racer, being able to play it very, very smart. He knows a lot of these places where he can and can't overtake, as well as just, kind of hoping that he can put the pressure on Dantas enough for Dantas to make a little bit of a mistake and do that, as he's right on the rear bumper going up through the S's. So right here, we'll see him make a move. This is either a great place to make a move. It's a great high risk, high reward. So now side by side, Evandro Dantas, Kieran Harrison. Kieran Harrison having just a little bit more speed, but now going into the chicane, he makes it, and luckily, no contact there, no drivers going off into the wall. So like we said, with those huge curves, a very, very dangerous place. But Kieran Harrison, no stranger to this track, is able to hold on to that and get that P1.
Yeah, he spooked Dantas a little bit there, sending it into the start of the chicane, forcing Dantas off of his line and then letting him through. He actually also let Victor Miranda through as well. So now he's in P3, already facing pressure from Bruno De Carmo here, and really it's going to be a matter of whether or not you can maintain the pace using as few resources as possible, because again, the looming threat, we've got 17 laps here. There's a high chance that these cars might run on the field by lap 16, and Dantas is already just losing it a bit more here. He's actually going to let Florian Lebigre through, might be, not just yet, however, and still trying to make sure Lebigre has to contend with Bruno De Carmo here, making them work for that position ahead of him. But here comes Lebigre. He looks like he's on the outside of the straight. That's a very narrow spot for you to try and make a pass there. They're rubbing against each other, and Lebrigre is losing it at the beginning of the chicane. So is Bruno De Carmo. He actually gets forced off, but Lebrigre manages to keep it under control. He's scrubbing off a lot of speed, however, which gives the other cars in front of him space to move past him. Pedro Dean tried to make a move, but didn't make it stick. And Lebrigre, very ballsy, a little bit dangerous, but securing that position.
And we see right there, that's exactly why Lebrigre is one of the best sim racers in the world. Just super, super dangerous moves, but he's able to hold on to it. As we see right there, Reutemann, the crash that happened earlier, unfortunately, right there, that was a very, very hard hit to the rear bumper and going into the wall. So these cars carrying a lot of speed right there. It doesn't take much to end up into that wall. And just like that, we've seen one incident. Bruno De Carmo able to walk away from that. But right now, like we've seen, we have a battle going on again. Dino Filippa, Pedro Dean, so these guys going into the S's. This is also a dangerous part. You usually don't want to be going too wide. You want to kind of slot in, as we see right here. Dino Filippa now 5th place, Pedro Dean into 6th. So, like we said, these guys, they're getting very gutsy out here. They know, hey, it's a sprint race. We don't have that much time as we normally would. As we see these guys very, very close to each other going into the chicane. We have 4 cars lined up in a train right now. So, like we said, anything can happen. Ooh, a little bit squirrely right there from Pedro Dean. The rear end kicking out just a little bit. So, we know Pedro Dean is, he's feeling the pressure from Bruno De Carmo right now as Dino Filippa starting to get just a little bit more of a gap. So, Filippa gonna have to hold off the pressure right now if he wants to be able to keep it focused and get up into podium contention.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned before, it takes a staggering amount of concentration to keep these cars under control. Remember, these are still rear-wheel drive, 600 horsepower monsters that can go up to about 186 miles per hour. So definitely a bit of a struggle to keep them under control. But these drivers mostly have it kept under lock and key. And yeah, living up to the namesake of V8 Supercars, we've got some really intense racing going on here. Action almost all around. And right now, we're still holding on to the battle between Bruno De Carmo and Pedro Dean, with Jackson Resende running up the rear of these 3. Jackson Resende really having to try and work hard in order to secure himself a good position as they're entering the chicane right about now. So far, Dino Filippa still holding on to that lead, but the gap between him and Pedro Dean is narrowing ever so slightly. Meanwhile, Florian Lebrigre is pulling away from these 4 cars right now. They're going to have to work together with each other if they want to be able to catch up. And especially very much so considering how much resources you end up wearing out before you reach the end of the race here. And we're on the board with Jackson Resende pulling up to the tail of Bruno De Carmo here again. Less than 0.3 of a second of separating them. So any mistake that any of these drivers cause could end up shifting the balance of power to anyone else. Ooh, a little bit of a squirrely exit there, yeah. Going on the throttle too early there, that's a paddling.
So now we are into lap number 8 of 17 out here at Watkins Glen in the V8 Supercars. But like you mentioned right there, a lot of these drivers, they've been pushing it very, very hard. They're already starting to get just a little bit squirrely. You know, a few people have been into the wall, just taking it a little bit too wide on some of these corners. So it's really hard to keep these cars under control when you're going that fast, have that much speed. Especially these cars aren't light. These cars, you know, they have a little bit of heft to them, a little bit of weight. So they have to be just that much more careful. And look now on the rear bumper of Jackson Resende's car, looking at Bruno De Carmo. I'm not sure if he has a little bit of damage there. We see his tire is poking out just a little bit. So right there on the left front tire, poking out just a little bit. So I'm not sure if that is affecting his pace. You know, we can see a little bit of the damage to the front bumper. So a little bit less aero, that, you know, may be affecting him just somewhat on the straight. So we'll have to see. Bruno De Carmo now, unfortunately, down 3 positions from where he started at the beginning of the race. But now, this is what it's all about, folks. Right here, we have Kieran Harrison and Victor Miranda going for the battle for first place. So Kieran Harrison has been leading the majority of this race, but like you've seen, Victor Miranda, we know this is another absolutely amazing driver out here with some of the fastest paces, a lot of places that we've seen. So especially last weekend, we weren't in the V8 Supercars, but we were out at Mount Panorama where we seen Victor Miranda. We know he's no stranger to these tough battles. So Kieran Harrison has his work cut out for him here.
Yeah, and again, Kieran Harrison is in the position just like last heat where he has to contend with a driver hot on his heels, just waiting for an opportunity to pounce. This time around, it is Victor Miranda, the Brazilian here. He's going to have to keep it way under control because he still has the race left. And Oof, really tough to call right now because when you think about drivers in front, you always think about how much pressure they're under because of how close the cars are to the rear, how they have the advantage when it comes to drafting, especially during the high speed sections. And you're always considering whether or not, like, you have to look forward and back at the same time. You have to look forward at the track, make sure you don't make any mistake. You have to look backwards, make sure they don't try to pull anything funny. It's a really tough spot to be in, but if anyone can hold the pressure, I think Kieran Harrison definitely is one of them, as they're pretty much clear of the rest of the pack right now. This is a two-car battle, and no one's interrupting them.
So we'll have to see, like we said. So we are over halfway through. We're on lap number 10 right now. Victor Miranda, Kieran Harrison battling now, as well as further down the pack we have it going on between Florian Lebigre and Evandro Dantas. So we've seen Lebigre making some great moves earlier on right here in this section of the track. He's looking to go on the outside, trying to get a little bit better line over Evandro Dantas. So he does. He'll be able to slot over him, being able to brake just a little bit later going into there. So once again now, the red line driver, Florian Lebigre, able to get into that third place position. But with the battle going on for first place, hey, we still have quite a few laps to see if Lebigre can improve on that. And what is a two-way battle currently may very well turn into a three-way battle. But like we said, that gap currently sits at about 3.5 seconds, and Lebigre still has to battle off Dantas. So we'll have to see. Once again, Kieran Harrison, Victor Miranda, I expect them, they both know, all right, they both want the win very, very bad, but at the same time, they are smart enough drivers to know the more that we battle it out with each other, the more that these guys are going to catch up behind us. So 3.5 second gap between your leaders and the rest of the pack.
Yeah, that isn't even mentioning the fact that if you push each other too hard during these battles, you end up burning fuel. And as we've spoken before, a bunch of times before they even started the race, fuel is so important to manage here, because you don't want to end up in the pits on the very last lap and then succeed your position. But here comes Victor Miranda, sending it into the chicane there, bringing quite late, but managing to keep it neat and tidy, and immediately goes for the pounce. Kieran Harrison has no reply, and Victor Miranda just takes that spot away from him.
So right there, another great move that we've been seeing right there. The chicanes has definitely been a make or break for a lot of drivers out here getting up those positions. But like we said, Kieran Harrison, he's no stranger to that first place, so he's looking to make that return back on Victor Miranda. So like we said, we still have a few laps here to go, and these guys, their lap times are slowing down just a little bit from where they were in qualifying. So like we said, part of that may be fuel savings, part of that is the battles going on, but nonetheless, Kieran Harrison, last time we were out here, we definitely seen him. He was one of those that early on, a lot of these drivers didn't expect to run out of fuel. He was one that, hey, all right, he knew that going into the second heat where he came out victorious. So Kieran Harrison and Victor Miranda, both of these guys, it's really, really hard to battle it out because, like you said, you don't know when you're going to get that opportunity to overtake. But we're going back into the back stretch right before the chicanes. We'll see, is Kieran Harrison going to kind of cruise right behind and wait until a few more laps to make his move? Looks like he does. So he's just slotting right behind Victor Miranda, just trying to keep it clean, trying to keep it smooth. Like you said, a lot of this out here too is trying to make that driver in front of you, force them to make an error, force them to push it a little bit too hard.
Yeah, the important thing is that you always want to stay within touching distance of them, because just in case here, as Kieran Harrison, being a bit brave here, tries to see whether or not he can send it into that corner. Doesn't seem like he is, but as long as he keeps within a hair's breadth of Victor Miranda here, he has an opportunity to maintain and pounce for the attack. And Florian Lebigre, actually, credit to him, he's closing the gap quite substantially. In fact, he lost about half a second over the course of the last 2 laps, so he's definitely catching up there. But with less than 4 laps to go, Evandro Dantas is in the pits, and that's what we were talking about. Resource management is so important on this track with these cars, and Evandro Dantas, the first victim of said resource management.
Yeah, looking in there too, I feel like he may be pitting just a little bit early as well, so I'm not sure if there's any damage to his vehicle as well. It looked pretty clean from what we could see, but like you said, yes, definitely the resource management is absolutely crucial out here in today's race. So that may come into play between Victor Miranda and Kieran Harrison, but these two guys, they're still holding quite a bit of a lead right now, about a 3-second lead between Kieran Harrison and Florian Lebigre. And Lebigre himself is able to go, as these guys go extremely wide out off there. You just see from that camera angle how wide these drivers are able to take that out here in this Cup configuration. So now Kieran Harrison going to the outside, looking to make his move, setting it up for the final turn of the track. Oh, a little bit of contact between the two of them there. But right now it looks like Kieran Harrison able to take back that top spot as we're closing out lap number 13. So going into lap 14, we have about 4 laps left out here for Victor Miranda to overtake that back. So now Kieran Harrison playing defense as we go into lap number 14.
Yeah, and I'm starting to wonder if he maybe made his move a little bit too early there. As you said, we've got about 4 laps remaining in the race, and that kind of move will consume a lot of fuel. So maybe he jumped the gun a little bit too soon. We'll have to see. Victor Miranda, that caught a little bit by surprise, I would say. Did end up losing that position to him, but he's trying to catch up as quickly as he can, and it looks like he might be doing just that. Just have to remember that there is the looming threat of Florian Lebigre behind him, just waiting for either one of them to end up battling each other too hard and make a mistake. Looks like that's not happening for the time being. Looks like they've been able to keep it under control here. But yeah, it's pretty much a 2-horse race for the time being. However, the threat is still there.
And now looking at it too, you see a lot of the drivers coming out of the outer loop, going wider and wider every single time. So like we said, out here just on the different layouts, just seeing where the track limits are, where they aren't. These drivers really learning that, getting comfortable of, okay, how much can I push it? How much can I get away with? As now Kieran Harrison, like we said, it's just a slight gap, but again, with just a few laps left, we know that you want to get as much of a gap as you can. You want to be able to save fuel. So many different factors going in here. As we can see now looming in the background, still just under 3 seconds. So a little bit less of a gap from where we were earlier, Florian Lebigre. So we'll have to see, is he going to try and hold on to that 3rd place position, try to go for the overall points, or is he going to try and push it with everything he has, risking maybe a little bit more fuel? But like we said, about during the middle of the race, some of these drivers, their laps were a little bit slower, so maybe some of that fuel consumption throughout the race has already paid off, leaving just enough for these drivers to really push it the last few laps. So we have to wait and see, as we have a beautiful shot just seeing how wide those guys taking it out of the outer loop, coming on to the last couple of corners, as we see about a half a second gap there that was happening between Kieran Harrison and Victor Miranda. So Harrison, we can absolutely see pushing it now. So we'll have to see Harrison, Victor Miranda, as we're closing out lap 15. Only a couple laps left out here, folks.
Yeah, and this is pretty much the point in the race where the drivers will look at the fuel gauges and either go breathe a sigh of relief or start sweating beads, because it is definitely make or break now. And Kieran Harrison is going to try and take this opportunity to pull away. Woo, Victor Miranda going really wide on the exit there. Probably ends up losing a little bit of time as they're coming into the S's here. And Lebigre, unfortunately for him, did end up losing even more time for these two drivers. So definitely on the penultimate lap here, Victor Miranda definitely looks like he wants to try something. Braking about the same time as they're entering the chicane. We're still on board with him, just waiting to see if it's an opportunity there. And that chicane in particular, while it does look like a prime overtaking maneuver, you do run the risk of maybe exceeding the track limits just a little bit. And we can see that Victor Miranda is struggling to keep the car straight and true. So he might be on the fritz already, but Kieran Harrison still holding it steady.
Yeah, and at this point in the race, you know that tire wear is starting to make its head known. And so the tire wear is starting to come into play right now. Like we said, as we are about to go, the white flag is about to start waving to these drivers. Oh no! Like
did he run out of fuel?
He's slowing down. He might have just ran out of fuel. We'll have to see. He's slowing down quite a bit. What happened there? Victor Miranda was in the lead at one point, now dropping down place after place.
Oh no, and that is definitely him sweating beads there. Ended up pushing a little bit too hard, doesn't have enough fuel to finish the race, and immediately he's going to be suffering because the drivers aren't too far behind. He's going to end up losing even more positions as the lap progresses. And to lose all your fuel just at the very end of the race is definitely a kick in the back of your head here for Victor Miranda. He's not going to be too happy with that result, probably having to look forward to see whether or not there'll be a change of strategy for the next heat. And there you go, he's back into the pits right now. Really unfortunate situation for him. But Kieran Harrison still holding steady in first place. No competition. In fact, Florian Levigra, the difference in time between them is even further than it was at the start of the lap. Dino Filippo another 3 seconds behind, so he's going to be pretty comfortable with that P3. Petrodine about a second behind. And there it is, Kieran Harrison crossing the line, and just like that, he takes it. Another race win for him, continuing his hot streak from last race.
So the experience out here on this track car combination definitely paying out big for Kieran Harrison. Like we said, he knew that he had to save fuel. He knew not to push it and when to push it. And unfortunately, the battle, what we were hoping for, an excellent battle all the way through the last lap, Victor Miranda running out of fuel and having to get towed to the pits. So what ended up being a podium, pretty much a podium in the bag for Victor Miranda, now sets him all the way back down to last, as we have the final few drivers starting to come over the line. So of Josh Perwin, Evandro Dantes, Ruitman. So like I said, now Kieran Harrison had the win, but he'll get shifted back. He was able to go up 6 places, as well as Florian Lebigre, who was doing amazing as well, up 11 places into second place. So a lot of these guys, what we expected to see a battle going on. Definitely the strategy came into play. So we have our Ben Q session winner right there, Kieran Harrison. But like we said, Victor Miranda, we knew he was pushing it, and he was able to set the fastest lap as well, but unfortunately pushed a little too hard and ran out of fuel. So second place goes Florian Lebigre. Third place, Dino Filippo. Fourth place, Jackson Asenge. Fifth, Pedro Dean. Sixth, Gaston Kulavi. Seventh, Bruno De Carmo. Diego Villarreal. Eighth, Josh Perrin. Ninth, rounding out 10th, we have Evandro Dantes. So we had a couple of drivers that were also a couple of laps back, as now the drivers are starting to grid, getting ready for that feature race that we have going on right here. So heat number 1, reverse grid. Heat number 2, we'll have to see, is Tim State once again getting that pole position. So unfortunately ending back, but now being able to lead the pack here in heat number 2. We have the last couple of drivers hitting the grid. We are moments away from going green. Heat number 2, Watkins Glen.
Yeah, drivers are loaded in, and we're about to see green flash drop down. Tim State slightly off the pace of the drivers, but will he be able to defend a bit harder this time around in order to secure that position? Looks like great launches all around from all of these cars, some better than others. However, that's Pedro Dean pulling up to the front here, and that is, I believe, the car of Anton Reutemann. They're pulling up ahead this time. Doesn't want to end walls like he did last time after that collision with Bruno De Carmo. So he's pulling out ahead, trying to see if he can gain as much time as possible by pushing it at the very start and then maintaining his fuel for the rest of the race. Some other drivers at the back here, Kieran Harrison made up 4 positions so far, but Lebigre is in front of him in P9 here. So looks like pretty clean race start so far, but they're entering the chicane. This is the biggest point of contention for lap 1. Clean, clean, clean all around. We call Mr. Clean here, do a little bit of housekeeping. But Evandro Dantas actually losing it a little bit on the exit there. Florian Lebigre taking opportunity and just making that pass happen immediately. And Victor Miranda is back up in second, so he's going to be very, very aware of the particular resource that his car is using, the fuel, of course. And he's going to try and keep it nice and slow, nice and steady. Doesn't want to make too many mistakes, doesn't want to push the car too hard, and probably wants to cross the line in a high finishing position this time.
So like I said, right now, pretty clean lap number 1. Unfortunately, Diego Villarreal did not have the best start, as he's down 7th place, 7 positions down into 13th. But like we said, a lot of battles going on right here as these guys trying to get in line. A lot of them going too wide. We see right there with Josh Perwin having the Aussie flag right there, representing his home country in some of the best vehicles that Australia has ever produced, the Holdens. So, like we said, right now, Arjun Rootman, Victor Miranda, Josh Perwin, you're 1, 2, 3. But like we said, Victor Miranda going up on the timing screen too. So right here, a lot of great passes, a lot of dangerous moves can be had, but these guys showing why they are the best of the best, putting it out on the line so far already into lap number 2. It's paying off for a lot of these veteran drivers so far. We're seeing Pedro Dean now up 5 positions, Kieran Harrison up 4. So a lot of these guys got very, very comfortable in heat 1, knowing just how far they can push it. Also, like we said, seeing unfortunately for Victor Miranda running out of fuel on the final lap. He's definitely going to know in the back of his head the whole race. All right, I need to push, but not so much that I'm gonna not be able to finish the races. Florian Lebiga right there, beautiful move to the inside. So the Team Redline driver showing why he has earned that spot on Team Redline. Just absolute textbook racing out here in heat number 2.
Yeah, that is not to say that Kieran Harrison is still hot on his heels as well, making it past Tim State there. That's a first big obstacle in out of the way. He's trying to have to make it past Jackson Resende as well. And again, have to be careful not to push the car too hard, otherwise you're going to end up with some trouble at the very end of the race. However, keeping it steady, a bit shaky on the loose there is Lebigre and Jackson Resende coming out of the S's. Kieran Harrison, one of his favorite spots to try and make a pass happen. It looks like he might just do the same. Ooh, that's a little bit of a big cut from Florian there. Might end up serving a little bit of penalty. Even bigger cut from Bruno De Carmo. So they're definitely in some hot water as the big rig. Yep, he ended up cutting the track, slowing down quite considerably, having to take that penalty. And that's Kieran Harrison taking advantage of that, trying to make it past Bruno De Carmo as well. But he's holding up the rest of the field, giving space for Dino Felipa and Pedrodin to pull away. How much, however, we can't say for sure. Ooh, a little bit of a love tap there for Kieran Harrison onto the car of Bruno De Carmo. He really wants to make it in front of him.
So right there you can see now as we have a drag racing ensue. So 2 wide right there behind. We have Kieran Harrison. He's, he knows he has the pace over some of these other drivers. He just has to be a little bit patient, but also, a little bit of contact right there on the rear bumper between him and Bruno De Carmo. So Bruno De Carmo, looks like we said, Kieran Harrison has a little bit more pace over him. So right now he's already fighting his way back, but we also see Jackson Asenje now having to defend off Bruno De Carmo as well. So this is what we love to see, those middle of the pack fights, everyone going left, right, throwing one. As we see in the background, Florian Lebiga unfortunately had a bit of a slowdown on the last one and now has put him further back on the pack. So he'll have his work cut out for him. Right now we're only in lap number 4 of 17, so there's still quite a bit of time for some of these drivers that had the slowdowns to make back up that pace. But will it be enough? We'll have to wait and see. As Pedro Dean doing a great job, going a little bit, cutting the track there just a little bit, but doing still a great job at fighting off Dino Felipa. So right now we have first place Victor Miranda, we have Ayrton Ruitman in second, and Josh Perween in third place. So we'll have to see if these guys can hold on to that. And for all of you watching at home too, you see the live timing right there. Feel free to scan the QR code, or if we have it posted in chat, get over there, be able to see what we're seeing up here in the booth as well. So right now, Victor Miranda also with the fastest lap time. So these guys in the 110s, once we see that, we know, okay, they're starting to push just a little bit, but they're going to have to settle in very, very soon, or we may very well have a repeat of what happened at heat number 1.
Yeah, definitely has to be more aware of this car right now. And we saw how bad the slowdown was for Lebiga. I didn't realize it would actually send him all the way to the back of the pack. He's in P13 right now. So he all the progress that he made early on, he has to make it all back up here. And very, very cutting it really close on that chicane in particular is Lebiga. And meanwhile, just in front there, Kieran Harrison still in P7, trying to make it past Jackson Resende. He made it past Bruno De Carmo. There he is. The pass just happened for him. He made it very clean on the exit of that particular corner. Ooh, going a bit wide there. Might give a little bit of opportunity for Jackson Resende to keep up. No, he's still keeping it steady here. And onto P6 is Kieran Harrison. However, a lot of time you have to make up within a space of about 11 laps.
So right there we can see Jackson Asenje up 3 places from the starting grid, now sitting in that 7th place. So Kieran Harrison also already up 7 positions, while Dino Felipa up 6. So right now we see Jackson Asenje, he wants to make that up and get onto the podium. But one rivalry we've seen earlier on our first race of the day between Kieran Harrison and Dino Felipa. We'll have to see how that comes into play here, as Kieran Harrison wants that 2nd win in a row out here for heat number 2. But like we said, Jackson Asenje, also Bruno De Carmo slowly behind him. So we're going to have still, like we said, battles in the middle of the pack every single time, as well as Ruitman now. The gap is closed a little bit between him and Victor Miranda. So up towards the front of the pack too, we have a little bit of a gap going on now between 5th place and 6th. So your top 5 looking to close the gap on each other a little bit more. Battles going on is definitely going to make that gap close, but we'll have to see. Ruitman had an incident last heat that started putting him towards the back of the pack. This time he's saying, you know what, I'm up here, as he has passed now into 1st place over Victor Miranda. So Victor Miranda showing he has great pace, but Ayrton Reutemann pushing just a little bit more, hoping to hold on to it. So right now, Reutemann and Miranda, it may very well go down to see which driver saves fuel the least. You want to finish in first, but that is the key word. You have to finish to be able to finish in first place.
Yeah, and Reutemann definitely trying to prove a message right now that he can handle the big boys. He can run with the best of them, and he's proving it right now with taking that position away from Victor Miranda. Josh Berwin also not that far behind them as well. Only about 7/10 is separating him from this two-horse race on the front, and he's definitely closing the gap ever so slightly. Kieran Harrison, meanwhile, is also closing the gap. In fact, he made up about half a second there over the course of the previous lap, so definitely on pace to try and make a move. But Dino Filippa, his biggest obstacle is going to make life a little bit difficult for him. Meanwhile, Victor Miranda is still chasing down Ayrton Reutemann here. Ooh, man, it's getting a bit worrying because we can definitely see how hard these guys are pushing cars. Oh, a little bit of a tap there onto the wall as he enters the start-finish straight. He's going to end up losing quite a bit of speed there, maybe losing a little bit more time to Reutemann here. Josh Berwin also taking advantage of that. And yeah, I was getting back on topic here. It's definitely, you can see the cars, the drivers really pushing the cars, and I'm a little bit worried.
So we have Vic Miranda starting to settle in just a little bit, like you mentioned. He's getting a little bit squirrely out here. We're only 8 laps into this thing, so I don't think tire wear is really playing into effect just yet. But again, that is, once again, pushing these cars that have no traction control, no ABS. So you are right on the line of what the car can do. As Josh Berwin now is starting to settle in right behind Victor Miranda. So Victor Miranda not only looking to get in first, but now having to battle off Josh Berwin. So like we said, the Aussie out here today in one of the most famous Australian cars out here. We have the Holden Commodore. So these guys out here, it is not no longer a battle between Ford and Holden, but it's a battle between countries. We have the Aussie trying to hold on to the podium position, improve, get into second place over the Brazilian Victor Miranda. So like we said, battle right now going on between first, second, and third, as well as another battle going on back behind for P4. So Pedro Dean catching up to Dino Filippa. Kieran Harrison falling down one position. We have to see exactly what happened there that put Kieran Harrison. So he's only 2 seconds off the gap. Like you mentioned earlier, he's able to start slowly closing in on the pack in front of him. But now he'll have to make his way through Pedro Dean, Dino Filippa, and Josh Berwin if he wants to get back on the podium. So a lot of work cut out for these drivers. Ooh, Victor Miranda right now looking to make a move, going to the inside on the back straight. He's looking to get to that chicane first. Will he be able to do it? It looks like he does, as Reutemann able to slot in right behind him. So we have a 3-train going on right now. Victor Miranda able to get that first place position back from Reutemann, but Berwin is right there on their heels in third place.
Yeah, and Pedro Dean and Dino Filippa have been trading positions for the relative amount of time that they have been fighting. Kieran Harrison still holding on to that P6 position for quite a while now, but again, as you mentioned, the gap between them is so much closer than it was a couple of laps ago. It was 3.5 seconds, now down to less than 2 seconds. So he's definitely on the pace. We're about past the halfway point of the race right now, and Josh Berwin really has to struggle, do his best, car under control, trying to see if we make it past Reutemann here. Ooh, a little bit of squirrely entry into there. Gonna go very, very wide there because he doesn't want to scrub off too much speed. But that gives Pedro Dean an opportunity to catch up, and he does make it past. He has the inside track at the beginning of the S's there. Dino Filippa might do the same for Josh here. Oh, looks like he's trying to keep it nice and tight, closing the door onto Dino Filippa, not letting him through. But this battle is definitely going to slow all of them down because Kieran Harrison is now just under a second behind these cars. And with 7 laps remaining, it definitely is looking like Kieran Harrison might be in a pretty good spot to round out the race.
So I expect to see an amazing battle as we go on through the last final lap. So right now, lap number 10, your leader, Victor Miranda, closely followed by Ayrton Reutemann in second, and Dino Filippa holding on to that third place position. So like I said, a lot of this, you kind of have to have a little bit of that mindset going into this. We know it's a sprint race, but have that mindset that you have to have whenever you're going into some of the longer endurance races of, okay, I need to keep fuel at the forefront of my mind, because like we said, you want to finish in great position, but you got to finish. So Reutemann right now, they're starting to settle in just a little bit, but we're going to have to see as he's getting very, very close. They were back and forth a couple laps ago. Reutemann able to be in first, now back down to second. So Victor Miranda, we know, has the pace, but once again, what we've seen last heat, Victor Miranda had the pace, but unfortunately just having that fast of a pace burnt through too much of the fuel, having to get towed on the final lap, putting him all the way back into 13th into the pits. But right now, Kieran Harrison up another position, so now able to make it up to 5th. A little bit of a gap now between Felipe and Perween. So Josh Perween, who's sitting in 4th position, now wants to be able to get back on, but has a little over a second gap as Dino Felipe now overtaking Reutemann, able to get into that 2nd place position. So great battle going on. Dino Felipe showing excellent pace. We'll have to see if he keeps up this pace or if that's going to come into fuel, if he will have to also pit for fuel or make it all the way through lap 17. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, and we're placing so much importance on fuel consumption here because barring, I think, the NASCARs, I think these cars have the largest displacement engines in our current roster. Massive 5-liter V8, so you know for a fact that they're immense gas guzzlers here. And not to mention, of course, the amount of power that they have put even more wear on the tires. But as we mentioned before, these are like our top drivers here, best of the best. And if anyone can keep them under control, it's definitely these guys here near the front of the pack. Kieran Harrison actually making up position over Pedro Dean and again closing the gap even further. You can see him on the camera is really not that far behind the rest of the front of the pack right now. Meanwhile, Dino Felipe definitely wants to try and make up time over Victor Miranda here. We've got about less than just under 5 laps remaining. Oh, it's going to be a tough one to call because of how close these drivers are. And really, as I mentioned last heat, living up to the namesake of the IRL supercars here with how close these races are.
So right there we can see Dino Felipe. We know he has enough pace, but once again, he's pushing the car pretty hard, so it will come down to those final couple of laps. Victor Miranda looking for the redemption from heat number 1. Now is holding on to that 1st place position very comfortably. So we know that he's good at defending, but last time around, we're already lap 13 into this. So just at the tip of the tire wear starting to come into these right here around some of these faster right-hand corners. Really, a lot of these, especially a track like this that has a lot more right-handers than left-handers, that starts wearing out the tires on one side of the car so much quicker than the other, especially when it's the very, very high-speed corners. So, like we see, especially, coming in from some of the NASCAR vehicles, a lot of those guys are kind of set up a little bit different, used to having that of one side of the car is definitely going to be wearing way faster. So those guys kind of already know how that goes. The V8 supercars, definitely a road racing car. So as many rights as lefts, but out here, this being the NASCAR Cup configuration, just a little bit different. And see now Kieran Harrison on the back of Josh Perween looking to make a move to the inside. So he holds onto it. Saw the slightest amount of wheel smoke right there. So the littlest bit of lockup, but that goes to show if you can hold it right on the very edge, that is why Kieran Harrison was able to come out victorious on last heat and now looking to make it a run for the podium here in heat number 2. So looking to that inside line, we'll be able to see as he breaks a little bit later than Josh Perween. Beautiful overtake to the inside of turn number 1.
Yeah, great drive from him all the way from P13 up until P4. Great drive from him, making up 9 positions, but you do have to pick up the pace, Kieran, because you've got about 3 laps remaining and the cars in front are still a bit of a distance away from you. Maybe you bank on one of them making a mistake. Here comes Dino Felipe making it past Victor Miranda just before they enter the chicane. Makes the pass happen and then enters the chicane before Victor Miranda does. Makes that pass pretty clean. And Victor Miranda just leaving that position wide open for Dino Felipe. Is going to try and pull away now. But Kieran Harrison, man of the hour here, is still on a mission. He's going to try and make it past Reutemann here. Oh man, it's really going to be tough to call. I mean, just look at how brilliantly this man is driving right now as he comes up alongside Reutemann into the left-hander, makes that pass look textbook and clean already up into the podium.
So now Kieran Harrison showing once again why he was able to win the last heat. Just absolutely amazing driver as we see Dino Felipe getting very defensive out here, and as well as Victor Miranda. So here we have the same battle going on that we had in heat number 1 between Victor Miranda and Kieran Harrison, which ultimately led to Kieran Harrison able to best Vic Miranda going into the last lap of heat number 1. So we only have a few laps here left to go, folks. It is all Dino Felipe, Victor Miranda, and Kieran Harrison. Kieran Harrison, pushing it, able to go onto the outside right now. So a little bit more exit speed out as we see a beautiful pass. So Kieran Harrison, Dino Filippo, this is the battle that we expected to see coming into here. Like we seen TCR cars earlier today, these two battling it out all the way to the line. So Kieran Harrison definitely wants to make a point here of, all right, I'm going to make this 2 in a row. I'm going to show you guys why I'm one of the best sim racers in the world out here, showing the best of the best going on. So we have only a couple laps left, folks. The battle is heating up, absolutely. So knowing that these cars can take a beating, I expect there to be some door bagging and some tire rubbing going on into the last couple of laps.
Yeah, but you don't want to end up pushing too hard, because you know what happens when you do. And Dino Filippo is going to see just how fast Kieran Harrison is coming up on his rearview mirror here. About 0.6 of a second separating these two on the penultimate lap. So we have to see Kieran Harrison whether he can make time in the sectors. Looks like his fastest sector was around sector 2. So definitely have to watch out for that particular instance here. But Dino Filippo, all he has to do is keep it nice and steady. Keep Kieran Harrison at bay, maintain your pace, and don't end up running out of fuel, because that's what did Victor Miranda in. It looks like he's in a safer position this time around, but here comes Kieran Harrison immediately from half a second going down to below 3/10, coming out of the chicane right now. Ooh, pretty nice cut there, just barely within the track limits, and he is just right on the rear bumper of Dino Filippo here. That's going to be a large amount of pressure for him, as ooh, that exit, he kept it nice and narrow here. Got a very nice exit speed. Here comes Kieran Harrison for the pass. Ooh, a little bit door banging, as you've said before. But Kieran Harrison still keeping it nice and steady. Dino Filippo closing the doors on him, not wanting to make the pass happen, but he gives it away anyway. Kieran Harrison now back into P1, the position that he ever so much was chasing. And now he's back up in front. Dino Filippo's on the tail end of it.
And so we see, folks, as the white flag flies, we are on the final lap. The absolute rivalry been going on all day between these top two drivers, Kieran Harrison, Dino Filippo. What started at the beginning of the TCR cars, now transferring all the way in through the V8 Supercars. So they're leaving it all out on the line right here. Like we seen earlier, door banging side by side. I expect we'll see what happens as we go onto the final straight as well. A few other people. Pedro Dean getting extremely close to Reutemann right there. Bruno DeCarmo taking advantage of that, going to the outside as well. So, a little bit of lockup getting sketchy. You do not want to do that, but Bruno DeCarmo able to hold on through it, going through the chicane. So absolutely great as he's looking for a move right now. Sets it up, forcing Reutemann to go to the outside. So Bruno DeCarmo able to make it up a few places as well. Excellent driving out here in the middle of the pack. As we see right now, look at the time of Kieran Harrison, able to get a bit of a gap up front. So Kieran Harrison, let's see, does he have enough to make it through the line? Dino Filippo also trying to battle out Victor Miranda. Victor Miranda looking to make a last-minute move. So here we go, folks. Final stretch of the race. Kieran Harrison leading in first in a drag race behind. Looks like Dino Filippo second place and Victor Miranda holding on to third. So great battle of the final lap all the way throughout. Your top 8 drivers right there crossing the finish line. We have Reutemann, unfortunately, slowing down quite a bit. He may have just run out of fuel on the final lap. So Reutemann doing amazing early on. But unfortunately, like we said out here, the V8 Supercars, as we have some great sportsmanship right there. We have Diego Villarreal giving him a push across the finish line. Folks, this is what it's all about right here. You see your fellow driver, although you're competing, you want to help them out if you can. These guys showing absolute showmanship as well as great competitiveness out here. So Tim State now making around the last final couple of turns to round out this heat number 2.
Yeah, and Reutemann actually lost all his fuel halfway through the lap, so he was in a battle and then immediately lost it just as he was really heating up. But we have to talk about our driver of the day, Kieran Harrison. 2 wins in a row here at race 18, AMX 5. Again with the V8 Supercar, so he's very familiar with it, and very, very good job for him. However, fastest lap still goes to Victor Miranda, so definitely props to him as well.
So there you folks, we had at first place Kieran Harrison, second place Dino Filippo, and third place Victor Miranda. All of these guys just putting it out all on the line out here at Watkins Glen, New York. So this is a great car and track configuration. I really hope that we see more of the V8 Supercars going on, as these drivers really showing what they can do with it, especially at this track, one of the most famous endurance races, the 6 hours of Watkins Glen. going on this weekend in real life as well. So top 5 as well. Josh Perwin sitting in 4th, Bruno DeCarmo sitting in 5th, Pedro Dean 6th, 7th, Jackson Asenge 8th, Florian Labigre 9th, Gaston Kulavi 10th of Andrew Dantas 11th, Ayrton Reutman, who unfortunately running out of fuel on that last lap, but gets pushed to the finish by Diego Villarreal. So great sportsmanship out there, and Tim State rounding it out in 13th place. So like we said, man, I love every time that the V8 supercars come out onto the track, both in real life and in AMX out here. So great day of racing. The rivalry all day long between Dino Filippa and Kieran Harrison, but it is Kieran Harrison who is able to come out on top. So the day, not just the race, but the entire day, pretty much going out to Kieran Harrison. Congratulations, absolutely amazing, and we hope to see what he can do come tomorrow, hopefully, and next weekend as well throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, very strong start for Kieran Harrison here. Because Gal Valero ended up not taking part, he's closing that gap between him and Valero ever so slightly, and very, very big win for him this particular race day. Definitely going to be really happy with that result as well. I mean, if you want to talk about like competitive classes, I think just TCRs and V8 Supercars in general are probably the most competitive in terms of our classes. Like, it doesn't even matter what track they're on; it's always going to be a riot when it comes to these two car classes specifically.
So just like that, folks, our week 5 has started off amazing. We've had a lot of drivers out here, so we're a few weeks into it. The battle for the championship is heating up, especially with Gael Valero missing 2 races. We'll have to see. That leaves plenty of room for these other drivers to finally catch back up to him. So we'll have to see if he shows up tomorrow. Not sure exactly. We may have to see if we can get a word from Gael Valero in between races. But nonetheless, great racing as always here in AMX Season 5. AMX Sim Racing World Championship. Make sure to follow along all our socials. Go over to amxrace.com for the full schedule. We will be back out here tomorrow to continue our Assetto Corsa Competizione Championship, where we have your current leader, Simone Seminara, leading the championship with pretty much what I would say is he's very easily leading the championship. So we seen out there Simone Seminara, or will someone else be able to start catching up? Folks, you'll have to tune in tomorrow, 5:50 p.m. GMT, live on Twitch and YouTube. But signing off for today, I'm Kevin alongside with Damon. Hope you all have a great night, and we'll see you back tomorrow.